Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time on this Thursday to talk report cards, share ideas, or listen to ideas, I guess.
See lots of people streaming in. Hope everyone is safe and warm where you are today. I'm joining you today from Mount Bridges, where we are directly under a streamer. So I have really lovely neighbors who plowed out my driveway for me this morning, but it looks like I'm going to have to jump back out there again with the snowblower probably after we're done.
Wow. We had a cold day here in Sarnia. The snow stayed, which was lovely, but I think the Chatham way, they had rain yesterday, so they don't have much on the ground anymore, unless they got some of that today too. Hi, Steph. Thanks for joining with us. Steph was busy at another sharing session, so she's hopping on, changing her focus. Some of you may have joined us last week for our focus, getting started in Aspen again and just reconnecting. So again, today we'll be doing the same thing, but I'm Pam Gallant and I'm with Tien, our instructional coach. So thanks for being here. And Steph, can't see yet, but maybe she just needs a moment. And then Rod's always working in the background there. So if we have any technical information, so we're going to be doing the webinar version. So Tien, like you're going to be doing the chat for me, or there's no chat today. So what are you going to do?
I've got the Q&A. So if any questions that you'd like to kind of put in the side channel there, I'll try to my best to answer them, or I'll bring them to Pam's attention today. Pam, do you want me to stop you, or do you kind of want to like look for an organic pause?
No, you can stop me. I need a break every once in a while. Like, drive your Tesla and break and pick me up and say,
Sure thing.
Okay. Yeah, so next up, land acknowledgement.
So we would like to acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered or meeting together today on is part of the traditional territory of the Chippewa, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Delaware nations. These indigenous nations, known as the Anishinaabe and Lenape, agreed with their ancestral languages to the mutual sharing of the land with obligations and responsibilities to the environment. And we always try to keep in mind that today these responsibilities and obligations extend to all people.
Thank you. So today we are going to keep that same plan of focusing on revisiting parts of Aspen that we learned in progress reports and maybe you're playing around with again. So strengthening those skills we used before. Discover if there's anything new. And Tien actually asked me that question in our little pre-show conversation. Was there much new to learn? And my response is no. It's just more like little features that are hidden there. So not a lot to discover and just more refining. And again, the Q&A is open for chat for questions, and Tien will give you a typed response, or he'll pose it to the group and you'll hear the responses. But today's focus, we're kind of looking at that comment lens. So last week we looked at the mark book as a whole, so how to get into that table in the mark book area and how we might gather information there and insert information there. So today we're going to kind of focus in on the comment area.
I think that'll be a good thing for people to hear, is that all that learning that you did at progress report time is not, it wasn't wasted. It's going to help make this next phase a little bit easier.
Absolutely. So what resources are available for learning? So you're taking part currently in a live session, and we are doing our best to record those. Rod will do that for us, and we will be sharing that back out on the LKDSB program blog. So last week's session is recorded and posted there. And then there are also on the blog, you will see some on-demand resources available for you. It's a print document, and it is an updated document. So it may look visually the same as the document you used at progress report time, but there have been additions made so it reflects what you need to do in term 1. I don't really anticipate that document is going to change very much for term 2 because they're essentially the same thing. In addition, there are some how-to videos there that are the newest ones that talk mostly about the subject areas. And if you look at one of those videos, they're longer than the ones we did in the progress reports, but So for example, one of them is on language. So it just talks about that workbook page. It does kind of give you a little synopsis of all the buttons you need to click on as you go through the Aspen process. And that is on our LKDSB program blog. Put the little G here because sometimes for me, I can't get the blog to open, like the documents to open up unless I'm logged into my Google account. So other people like, no, it's fine. But for me, I have to be logged into my Google account to get things to access and open there.
I just want to address a question in the chat here, Pam. There's a question, is there a shared Google Doc with the codes that can be shared with staff to help people build comments? There are issues with the he, she code in the manual. Is that something that you've encountered?
Yes, so that is actually a code issue at the Aspen land. They know that there is creating that extra space in there. So Aspen, so we do those heat tickets, like things that go up to Aspen. So the spacing thing is something that they're aware of and that they're working on. So yeah, and I'll show that today too. I'm going to demonstrate what happens if your code is bad. So what happens in that piece. So copying and pasting is your best friend too from the document. So if it gets updated, I'll update it in that document and tweet it out and all that sort of thing. Hi, Stef.
So, in the works.
Thanks. So there's that document, and way you can tell if it's the new one is in the bottom left-hand corner. It should say January 2021. So if you have the old document, I would recommend getting rid of that one and updating to this one. On page 28 and 29, there's a list of the newest videos that are there. So if you are, we may have some new teachers out there, people that had not done the progress reports in the fall. So if you're looking to actually, how do I get in? There's the videos listed there too as well, but the newest ones are under the entering marks section. So for you to have a look there. Update on the character count. So this has been, we've been playing around with trying to get to what they're set at because we have all kinds of parameters like the actual physical space we have to deal with, what the ministry, font size directs us to be. So on page 11 in the document, you will see that. I've been playing around with the arts marks, arts comments, and 300 is not a very big comment space, and intermediates you have even less. So please try a comment out before you start, giving them to everybody. I would, write my dance comment, apply it to one student and check it out just to see if it's fit, because I had to do a major edit on the comment that I have done. Learning skills, currently it is set at 2,000, and I just got word this afternoon that Aspen will be doing an update in the middle of the night that does not interrupt anybody's Aspen work. But one of the things they'll be updating is increasing the learning skills count to 2,800. So you will have more space for learning skills. So that is good news for us. So as we get into that comment area, this will be the opportunity for us to be reflecting on our professional responsibility and professional judgment. So as Growing Success guides us in our assessment practices, one of the things Growing Success gives us the allowance to do as teachers is to use observations, conversations, and products to assess student learning. And we call that kind of like the triangulation of data. In the kindergarten Growing Success document, they use the language of what do students do, what do they say, and what do they represent, and how do we use that as the assessment. I like the kindergarten language a lot. Just kind of flows. I flow back and forth between the two of them. With the triangulation of data, again, it's our professional judgment which ones we use and how many we use to gather assessment material to make our evaluations of students. So we don't have to do observation, conversations, and products about everything. Sometimes we have a product from a student and we have a conversation with them as follow-up, and we feel like we can make a fair assessment of their learning and their knowledge and skills. For other students, we might need to watch, what's going on there? I need to watch what's happening. They, gather a couple of products and ask a few students a question in the conversation. So you've used 3. So it's that professional judgment, you are gathering information to put there. And for us in this environment we're in now, face-to-face teachers would have had observation conversations and products that they gathered from September all the way through to December from student work. And you can reflect back on that and use that information. And then moving forward in January with the remote learning environment, you may have, we're discovering it's a lot different to observe and a lot different to have conversations, and what do the products look like since we've gone remote. So we can use a blending of those things. If you don't feel like you have enough observations from in January, like you've observed for a long time before that, so you're able to make those reflections. And if we think about the progress reports too, they're a progress, they're a formative assessment time. We're not really making a judgment yet. So thinking back to that time, you know, we can use that material too, that assessment material we have now, to finally make our summative assessments. I can only see Tien nodding and looking
I agree. You know, and I think that it's you know, although, you know, there are many challenges with remote learning, some of that data collection actually becomes a little bit easier. I know definitely that getting a personal kind of conversation with a student is can be a little bit easier in that online setting. As well as just the importance of thinking about not kind of like as these things as siloed ideas, but really kind of you need often to bridge that idea of like, I got a product, so I've got this answer in front of me, maybe in math, and then but I don't really know the thinking that led to this answer. So we have to have that, either that observation or that conversation, and just thinking about like assessment as really like taking that time to sit down with students and understand the thinking.
Yeah, and I know our office hours on Tuesdays, we were really kind of taking that assessment lens, at least for part of our sessions. So there's been things like Google Meets, there's things about Google Forms. We did something on running records. So, and Stef, I know you've been working with the curriculum partners to having them help discover how we might use observation conversations in their assessments too. So if we look forward to when we're writing the comments, what does growing success give us as a professional responsibility for our comments? If we're a kindergarten educator, you will need to think about the key learning, growth and learning, and next step in the learning. It's how we're crafting those comments for each of the 4 frames. And in the grade 1 to 8 environment, we're thinking very similar in the thinking, but it's like what students have learned, describe the significant strengths, and identify next steps for improvement. So in that whole, we step back and look at comments. Can we see that written for us? And in growing success, it talks about teachers should strive to use language that parents, and if it's junior intermediate students too, the language that they understand. So it's okay for us to remove that curriculum type language and talk about you know, the experiences we've had in class. Stef and I were talking today about, you know, if we're thinking about the physical activity piece, you know, it's okay to name the games kids are playing when they're talking about being fair and safe and inviting others to play. Some of you have like language you use to describe, you know, how you do your fitness breaks and your screen break time. So it's okay to use that whole language in there so the students can see themselves in the learning. So there was a memo that went out yesterday. Stef told me she didn't read the memo today though. Oh, give me the whisper. Yeah, it's on the elementary program page in the portal, but your principal probably will have sent this to you. So yesterday memo came out and it's already, there's been action and things have been updated. So originally there was this comment and the comment remains. It is, I'm calling it the pandemic comment, but this reporting period reflects learning that has occurred in modified learning environment as required by the provincial health guidelines. The pandemic may have resulted in the needs for possible adaptations to teaching and assessment practices. Ongoing communication with your child's educator will provide additional information pertaining to their progress. So this is something that we've been directed to put onto the report card. And we found out today that it's been able to be applied centrally. So what does that mean? Is that there's no teacher reaction required. So that is automatically going to be put on to your kindergarten communication of learning or the grade 1 to 8 report card. So that means that's a good news, because originally we thought it would go in the learning skills box and it would take like 372 characters would take up that space, but it's not doing that. So it's not going to take up any character space in any of the boxes, because I know people are like, I don't need something else to manage. So this has actually been removed from the comment boxes. And this magic will happen overnight. So some people are saying, I don't see it yet. Well, it's happening at nighttime. So tomorrow we will have what it will look like, but this is what we anticipate it look like. So the top one is for kindergarten, and it's above that place where teacher and the ECE's name is put onto the report card and the principal signature. There's this section up here. It will be plumped in there. And if it's a grade 1 to 8 report card, it will be below that. So that's automatically entered in.
So Pam,
Yeah.
I read the memo, and I inserted this comment in my report cards. What should I do?
Well, you have choice. You can do nothing. You can leave it there, or you can take it out.
Okay.
Both are acceptable. So
So for anybody out there who's already put it in, we have options.
I know, and some people were so proud to share with me. They knew how to do it with the Control D. They put it in one kid and then they filled it down for everybody. Control D. Steph's gesturing at me, but she's not saying anything to me. I'm not hearing you.
The Control D is the best.
It's very powerful.
And the Control L.
Oh yes, Control L, that's helpful. Control D, I'm like, it's like a superpower. You gotta be careful where you wield it. Like, it's excellent for the NA, pull down the comment column, but if we're applying that to the comment spot, I'm like, use with caution. Know your power. Yeah, so just rest assured that this is going to be put in there for you. Okay. And then we can't leave growing success without talking about the newest addendum to this. And I know our instructional coaches who have been in many of your Google Meets sharing experiences with your classrooms and had reflections on our Tuesday afternoons. There's been a lot of questions and wondering about, what do I put in the math comment? I don't know how to do this. And, because there's a lot of new, like, the curriculum's new and that sort of thing. So let's go back and say, well, what are we expected to do? What is our professional responsibility? So one, that we'll be putting that one mark in. So that mark book page looks very different. I'm not going to be thinking about math as the evaluation of math as a stranded experience anymore. It's now that overall mark. And with that, we're doing lots of learning about that as we go through the curriculum piece. But what is continuing and what remains to be consistent is that we are looking at significant strengths the students have demonstrated. So, and then what's next for them in their learning. And we may also talk about growth in learning. So we've always talked about kids sharing their strengths and what's next in their learning. That growth in learning, that had me wondering and thinking about pieces. And we may make reference to particular strands in their comments. So some things are familiar, strengths and next steps, and I can talk about strands if I want to, like, name that strand. I don't see anything about quantity here. So that's been one of the questions I've been getting. So I think, Tien, you have been that, like, how many strands do we have to report on? Have you had that question?
We've had some discussions around that. And so, that's one of the kind of the key changes here. What I really like about what we can do here now is we can really use a lot more of our professional judgment, because we know kids, and we can pull in things like process standards. So we can talk about, if we're talking holistically about that student, really what we're kind of getting down to is, what is this child doing? What are they learning in math? How, I might talk about how they problem solve. I might talk about how they reason and prove. I might talk about how they represent or communicate their thinking. So, and those are things that are kind of like much more broadly applied. Like I can think about, you have those students who are really good at kind of getting to the answer, but then their kind of critical next step is thinking about how do I represent my thinking? How did I get there? So we might provide some feedback around maybe using some visuals or using manipulatives to represent my thinking as a way to kind of tie that integrated learning across all the different strands.
I like the addition of the growth and learning piece. Like when I did lots of learning about the communication of learning and during that experience with the ECEs and teachers in our system, but how to write communication learning, that growth and learning, we wrestled and struggled with that. But in the math piece, like if I was before thinking about patterning probably happened in September, October, and then it was done. And then it would be January thinking about patterning. And you're like, now I can actually think about how that child has grown. Even if I did patterning in September and October, how have they grown in the learning the pattern? Because maybe like they couldn't figure out skip counting in September, October. But now through the experiences number talks, like skip counting, like getting to a decade number and counting then by tens after that, they've really leveraged skip counting as a strategy that they use. So I can talk about that as a growth in my learning. So not just actually pegging a kid to how they performed in one strand at one particular time. So lots of things to check into. Any questions from our audience about anything?
We do. We have a couple of, we have wonderful curriculum partners who have a couple of questions. So one of the questions, just to make sure that it doesn't apply to everybody else as well, was, so during the initial progress reports, prep teachers didn't have to include comments. So the question was, can we access our previous comments and can we assign comments to several students?
So accessing, I'm assuming they're talking about the comment bank. And so yes, if you create a comment, it's in your bank and probably you're experiencing the challenge. How do I get rid of some of these, like the poor quality ones? So when we get into the tool area, I'll show you how you can sort and filter a little bit and delete and hide some of those strands. So yes, your comments are there. And what was the second question, Tien?
And can we assign comments to several students?
So no, so Aspen is limited in its functionality at this current time. So it is like that one-on-one. It's a lot of clicking experience. Some teachers have shared with me that they kind of have a class list and they kind of cluster and say, these are the 8 kids I'm going to give an A for. And so I know those and I'm going to click, find the kid, apply the mark, skip down a couple, find the kid and go down the mark that way. So it's not as user-friendly as TWIA. Absolutely, it's not as that, the power of the flag, something we learned over time to use within TWIA.
Another question as well, thank you, Pam, was in core French, grade 1 and 2, where reading and writing are not applicable. What are they to enter because Aspen won't accept an NA?
Is this a French immersion class? It must be.
Core, I think, because core only does oral core.
Sorry. I was thinking like reading and writing. No, it's listening and speaking. They do. Don't worry about that if you don't put an NA in there. Just put report in there. Aspen has got that figured out and behind. And the reason why it's not such a big deal, because all of this actually goes back to when we do our report cards, we have the obligation as a system to upload that to the ministry. It's called ANSYS. And there are certain rules. So that's why like the NA for the arts in grade 1 to 8 when on the 4th strand is a big deal, because if not, we get the errors back. And in French, in our system, our students take French in grade 1 through to grade 8. It is actually not required to take French until grade 4. The curriculum starts in grade 4. So what we do in grade 1, 2, and 3 about our assessment is a local decision. So if you're putting in the 2 marks, you're not causing any errors and nobody's going to be upset about that. So, but if you forget it, the NA and the arts, it's a big deal. We have to go back in and fix that.
Okay, thanks, Pam. I think that, yeah, that was from a core French teacher.
Okay.
There's a question, Pam. Can they look at the progress report?
They can, yeah. So when we go into that, remind me again when we get back, if we go live into Aspen, because when we go to post grades, so important to this, and we want to view the report in the printed version, we can go back and view that. I haven't actually gone back and messed around with the term and to see. So I'm in the test environment. I won't break it. I'll have a look and see what we can find out with that.
There's also a question about the IEP box, but I think when you go live, you can show us how to put in marks and how to indicate that there's modified IEP.
It's that lowercase x is what we put in. So
Right.
yeah, go
Pam,
ahead.
Pam, you just cut out just a little bit. You said just leave it blank then, correct?
For the French.
For the 1-2, yeah.
Yeah, so they will report listening and speaking. So
Got it.
letter grade and leave the remaining ones alone.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, so we're going to go into tools. Let's start with the tools section today. And the intent of going there will be to look at how do you manage that comment bank. So things like sorting, disabling, deleting. We'll take a note about revisit the categories and how we can make them useful for you. So you're understanding your own library system and how that is connected to MarkBook. And then I think when we get into go back into MarkBook, we might have those conversations about workflow, like how do I do this? And we'll talk about what goes into the comment as we go there. So I'm going to be working in the test environment. It looks like I'm in Sir John Moore, acting as Pam Gallant, the teacher. And so I'll be working with a class of made-up students. So we'll go through and look at them. So I'll get myself out of this screen and into Aspen. Yay, my page is still alive. It's always exciting when I don't have to reboot. I hope. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I'm in Sir John, the school of Pam Gallant, the teacher, and I'm going to go to the tools area first. And I know my screen might be a little bit tiny for people, so I'll just make it a little bit larger. 125. Okay, so go back. I'm already landed exactly where I want to be. So when you land in the tools area, you want to make sure you go to the comment section and click one more time to another comment set. I think Steph had a panic attack text to me. She can't find her book. Somebody can't find the library. I'm like, one more click. You're so click.
It didn't look like your video.
Exactly. I know. So here we are in the comment bank. I'm going to go to this option bar here, this menu bar here, and I'm going to show all codes because this is probably the most annoying part about all of this is that when you get the all code, like I have 5,009 sitting here. You might even have more than that because I don't even have access to my old comment bank. I'm just looking at this UAT and then Pam Gallant, the teacher, are the owners of this. So this is just too big for me. So first step in managing your library, make sure you're selecting your enabled library. So ones that you actually own with that. And then we get into that table area that is much more manageable because now, well, I'm dealing only with 20 comments, but you might have like 400. So it's easier to sort through that. And then just to review some things we already know is that we can always take control of this table by thinking about each column arranging those as alphabetical order. So right now it's set on ranging the ID as the alphabetical order. But if you wish to, go by your category 1, if you click on category 1, it will go with ones that don't have headings and then numeric and then alphabetical there. So they will flop around as you go here. I will be the owner for all of these because I'm in my own enabled library. The disabled for me is all ends. So my comments are not disabled. So that's just kind of a flag here for me. Just making sure I had a kind of a plan here. So I'm back and forth to my notes. You can use some filtering here to go along with that. Is this advanced filter. So if your categories are working well for you, so if you know your categories, I've kind of set up my categories to be 1 to be my subject, category 2 to be the grade, and category 3 as my assessment like level. But that's because I've been creating comments. So you may find that when your library came over from TWIA, the categories are not matching and you have to do some editing with that. So we'll talk about how we can edit that down, but you can use that advanced filter if you need be. So if I was looking for just category subjects that were science, oh my goodness, typing with a pencil and a bad pen and bad typer. So I'm going to type in science there. I'm going to search along that. And my list will shrink down to just comments that I have labeled as category 1, have the word science in there. Again, panicking. I have a custom selection here. So I want to get back my comments. I'm just going to go back to all my enabled and I'll get them all back. So first thing is I'm going to talk about this disabled piece and like what's the point of that. And what disabled does is it's actually kind of like hides the comment from you from your enabled library. So this may be for someone who's done a grade change recently and has like, I have comments from grade 8 and now I'm teaching grade 3. I need to remove my grade 8 comments from this world. I need to simplify my life here. So how might I do that? So I'm going to show you that by going to, I'm going to use the kindergarten example. So literacy, behaviors, and letter sounds is a comment that I had written before. And I actually like that comment. I don't want to delete it. I don't want it to be gone. I just don't want to deal with it now. So what you can do is click on this bottom field here, disabled indicator, and click on that and save it. And it will disappear from your enabled list. So when I go back to my comment list, I won't see that comment here anymore. So it's just simplifying it. So if you had, you know, wanted to think about that holistically, you might say, I want to go find all my grade 8 comments and I want to get rid of them because I'm a grade 3 teacher now. I might click that disabled. But where are all those comments? If you go back to your filter and go back to your all codes, so filter and all codes on that. The screen is, I'm going to make it a little smaller just for this part. So when you see this disabled column, remember these are arranged in alphabetical order, so the ends are all here. I'm just going to reverse the order of this. So I get it. Oh, where are you? So there it is there. So there's that behavior, literacy and behavior comment. It's disabled. And so if I want to pull that back in to my library, I can just reverse that and it will hop back into my comment. So again, not deleting it, just hiding it from myself at this time. So if I go to my enabled comment, it is back in my library. But what if I do want to get rid of a comment? So I actually have one here called delete this comment. And when I go in here, this is an example, I wanted to delete this comment. I feel badly because I can't really give you the best demonstration here because in my training environment, I don't have a delete button, but I believe all teachers do in the options spot. So you might have add and then delete here. So if you do, this is how you get rid of that comment for good. It's gone, it's garbage, out you go and do that. So sorry, I can't really show you that.
all your work is public record, Pam. It's not allowed to be erased or deleted. I'm just going to jump in with a couple of points from the chat since we're in the live environment. I have a question from the chat. We used to be able to look at our previous comment in learning skills. So I could go back and look what I wrote on the progress report. Can we do that in Aspen?
Okay, so I'm going to try that in the, when we go into the markbook area. Okay. Yeah, so we'll have a look at that. Going to go into uncharted territory. That will be, let's see.
And number 2, can I access the progress reports of students who were with a different teacher for quad 1?
I believe so. I know principals can. Okay. And I think you can. Yeah, I'm pretty, because everything's all connected within Aspen. So it's just a matter of I'm doing the like this kind of phase because it's more about what teachers have access to. And I believe actually, oh, I know for sure, principals can see every report card on the child. So if I had Tien to Go's report card in my grade 8 class, I could go back and see all of his report cards all the way back to kindergarten. So I just don't know if the teacher has viewing of that.
I wonder if it would be under the reports section.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So I may have to do another video.
Yeah, or report back for us, Laura. Yeah, let us know as well. That
Yeah.
would be helpful.
Okay, so I've shown you the disabled, which is different than the delete. So decide what you want to have look at it. So now that I'm working with this much more manageable library size, and you can delete things out and enable them. Remember, you can always sort them by alphabetical order by each column to do that. But I'm looking here, I'm going like, ooh, I've got some missing categories, or things aren't all lining up. Like I've got, you know, some things like that are not according to my plan. Like I got a grade level here in my subject column and that kind of piece. It's kind of a mess. So what you can do to actually manage some of this is like sort them like I have, like so category and what's missing. I could go in and click on that one and update it to go along with that. But what if you're in that, like I'm in the mood for science, I want to like tidy up my science library. What you can do is go down your ID or whatever column that kind of indicates it's a science mark, and click on the ones that have a relationship to science. So 5 human, grade 5 science, matter and materials, science simple machines, science forces, conservation of learning. Okay, so I think I got them all. So those I've selected some that to me I think are science. I can then go here and click the show selected. And that cuts down my list to just ones that are related to the criteria I've looked for. So now I can go and see like, well, 3 of them, I've got great categories of a subject, category 2 of the grade, and the assessment level. I'm going to edit these 2 just so they meet that criteria. So matter materials, I'm going to open that one up. And so I'm going to add, this is about matter. So I'm going to do science. And what grade is matter material? I think it's grade 5. And let's call that a B. I'm going to save that. So now when I look at my comment list, it's starting to fill in there. And some of you may be saying, that's a lot of work. And like, yeah, it is. But it's also a good reflection time for us as educators, because the comments I wrote, like when I was a teacher at Arrow Road School, were not the comments I ended up using when I was at Confederation School. Like my skill as a teacher got better, and my comment writing got better, and I was more reflective, and I got moved away from the curriculum speak to be speaking more about what students were doing in the room. So I'm kind of thinking about it as a reflection point. Do you have to do it for all of them? I'm like triage, like what ones, pick a subject or 2 that you want to really focus and refine. But again, so now that they're all sorted in science there, now I want to get all of them back, and I'll just click on, instead of my custom selection, I will make sure I go back and see all of my enabled pieces there. So that just might help you manage by using that option of showing the selected ones. So putting in the ones that you really want to focus on. Okay. Oh, I'm actually going to go back and do that science selection again. So, oops, click happy here. Sort. And if I'm thinking about my science marks, get those up at the top here. Having this section here where the category is working for me, that it's consistent for me and it makes sense to me. I'm not saying everybody has to have category 1 as a subject, but that works for me. Having this completed in here will help the mark book really improve its functionality and ease, and also the preview part, because in Aspen you don't get to see the whole comment. in the Markbook area. You only get to see the preview. So I'd really suggest to put in like the big idea, the gist, something in there that helps you determine what that comment's about. So spending that time when you're like just focused on comments will help you in the long run when you're applying.
So just to let you know, Pam, sorry, Laura went back and tried, and under reports, if she chooses progress report, she is able to see all of the reports for all the students in her class currently. So that does update for the students that you have added to your classroom after the November date.
Right. So that's in one view. So she's looking at a PDF view. She would have to go back and read. So our question that when I get into Aspen Markbook area, I'll look and see if I'm, say if I'm just in science, can I go back and put, what did I say in science in first term or in progress report time? So thank you. Who did that?
That was Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, so I do want to talk about, I've got some art comments here that I was playing around with. And you'll see in my preview, I've got compare and contrast, compare and contrast, compare and contrast. But I was like, I've got a good code, a less than 300 characters, and an incorrect code. So this is what I started with today. So in this state comment here, I have something wrong with this code here. I'm missing a bracket. So I don't get any indicator here, but it blew up on me when I went into Markbook. So I will actually flip over to Markbook now to show that. So I want to put that in a science. So because I know I made a mistake in my code when I copied and pasted the code in, I missed a bracket. So when I go and try to put that code in here, I'm going to use my categories. So I know it's in art. And I don't even actually, it's popping up all of the art. If you have 100 of these, that's why category 2 will be helpful to shorten it down. So incorrect code. I know I have a mistake in this code. And that's what happens. It won't allow me to put that in. And there were a couple of teachers in progress report that this happened. We didn't know. It took us a long time to figure out what was going wrong. But it's because something in the code was wrong. So I'm going to take that out. So if I use the correct code, so my art, and this is my good code, and put that in. Oops, I need to make sure that, oh, I should have been in the arts piece. Sorry, I'm going to switch grades here. So the art, so this is the code that I believe is good code. And I put it in, close that out. And what happens is that it's way too big. Let's let that sink in there because I didn't think that comment was very long. So the arts are all tight because we had 1,200 characters for the 4 arts. So we had to divide it down by 4 to give each one equal billing. So it does give us an error here of how many it is there. So if you choose to start then deleting it, then you can do that. What I would recommend is cancel that. So test it with 1 to make sure you're confident that it's going to fit. Then I would go back to my tools and get into my comments. And I want the one that, so I wrote one that has less than 300 characters to go in there. You might want to test it out on the kid with the longest name in your class.
Good tip, Pam. There was just a question in the chat here about adding comments, and your videos on the are on the blog. So just yes, there are on-demand videos for adding comments to the Markbook in language, French, math, and the content areas. So
and you know what, you don't always have to go to the blog. If you save this document digitally, this is the reporting document. It's on page 28 and 29. They're all linked at the back.
Awesome.
So this is probably the thing that's going to be updated the quickest rather than the blog, right? Because I have input into this document, I can get at that and it can be updated easily. Updating the blog is a different thing, right? It's so this is the thing that, so as new videos come up, they'll be added to this table here. Great question. Okay, so hopefully, I don't want to panic people about the art thing, but some things to note. Your codes have to be perfect and copy them over. Don't paste the, don't type them in. And we do know there's an error with one of the he, she lowercase ones. So giving the space, I think it's actually giving this the trouble with the boys, not the girls. Just be aware of the comment size piece. So this is the kind of the power of the comment bank, is that if you make the correction in this area, you won't have to make the correction in 30 places to do that.
When you're applying the Control D, you're adding a comment to all students. We have a question in the chat that can you go in to each and then make individual small edits?
Yes, you can do that. So I'm going to show that. So I've got some comments here. The W's are being tested in this environment because it's a wide letter. So actually when IT was doing the testing, they chose the widest letter that they could find to make sure that the actual 300 characters fit, not 300 eyes, skinny. So I learned a lot about fonts doing this. So, okay, so somebody wanted to know about, can I apply to everybody? So there's one person has a comment in there and you saw the W's. And then next one, this is me playing around with it. This is what 300 characters look like. And what's the next one? Okay, so I'm going to, and there's the one that I had applied. There's the one that I had put in there. Okay, so what if I did, so this is where the power of the D is really important. So if I was going to say NA, nobody's getting a mark for visual arts this term, I can do the lowercase x and I can do Control D and everybody gets that Control D. This is an issue though. I have to take out these marks. Make sure it's one or the other. So that was quick. Worked. Steph was telling me how much she likes the Control D. So let's go in here and say, well, like if I said art will be assessed in term 2. Save that. That's going to be nice. You know, I have some things here already. What's going to happen to that? So if I do Control D with this box, art will be assessed in term 1. Control D. It replaces it for everybody, even that kid that had the W's, now that's gone. So think about what you want to use that for. Right, so and I had a comment for Maria and it's gone. Okay, so it depends on what you want to use it for. I'm going to demonstrate it here. What if I did want to give a comment in there, that art comment? And I want to use the good comment with less than 300. Whoops. What happened there? Sorry. Oh, sorry. And I want to use this one. I don't know why that's not giving me a good time here right now. Did I mess with it? I'll come back to that. Okay, so just be careful because it will go through, and if you replace it with like the comment with a student, it's going to give Maria's name all the way through it. It's not going to pick up all the different students in because you're not using coded language. So to use the code to get the gender pronouns accurate and the individual names, you will have to put in the students. You have to use that coded comment language. Okay, so I want to go and answer that question about can we see last term's report? Is that the question? Okay, let's go to something that might have something there.
Like specifically learning skills. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So learning skills. Okay, so I'm in the home room. So this is this term, and I know that because it's on term. I go back to progress, so changing that grade column, it might take a moment to load because it's going and finding it. That's the progress term. So then I could read that student's exact comment that was put in there. I won't leave that up because I'm protecting privacy. But the answer is yes. So great question. So you have two options. One, you can read it on the report just by running the report. So our guest contributor, Laura, did that by going and running the progress report. And so it stays there. And then, or you change your grade column. Like if I wanted to look just at one kid, I probably would do it this way. Like I want to know what Stef's, what did I say on her term one report or progress report? What did I say? I want to be just as kind on this one. So I'll go back to the progress, but just make sure you return to that term so you know you're in term one report card area.
And related to the comments, Pam, so you can start on your comments and you can put some things in, and then you can post grades and add more things to it, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm glad you brought up post grade because I didn't have that in my notes. Well done, someone out there asking about that. It is a very important piece. So I was playing around in the arts there before. If I go look at the report card, that was a grade 6 arts, was the grade 6 class. Oops, I picked the wrong one. If I look at the report card, I won't see anything in their report card there. Good. I would really like this list to be alphabetized. Working on that hard. So if I go in and look at this report, I'm expecting to see NAs and the work will be reported in term 1. If I go to reports and look at that elementary provincial, because I'm in the right term now, run this, I won't see anything there because I didn't tell it to go to this report yet. So the arts box, like, so nothing's showing up there when I expect to have it for every kid, and it's not there yet. That's me testing all the W's and IT. That's what it looks like.
Question from the chat, Pam.
Yeah.
Is there a way to check your character count when you are building your comment in the tool sections before applying it?
So I was like, why isn't there a character count in the tool spot? So no, it's not, there's no character count in there. So I'm going to add that to the list. Who wants their name on that one? Good idea. I think that the issue there is that it's, if we did add one there, it's not always going to be accurate because this is going to be replaced with Tien, like when you put it in. So it's always going to be bigger. But what you can do is if you're writing something, see, you can apply it. I'm just going to open up a document here. I think I showed this last week, but I took that comment in and using your word count. So go to tools and word count. It will tell you how many words you've used and how many characters you've used, but know you're going to be big because of the coding language. So I might, you've got your own workflow, how that would work. Some of you might put in there, like I wrote a bunch of stuff. I know I was talking to someone from, I think, Tilbury the other day and telling me that she was starting to make connections between how many lines and how many characters were. Like, so she was starting to get that visual piece of how many lines it would be in there. So might have to copy that idea too and figure that out. So what's 3 lines in this? How many characters is that showing up?
And just in relation to the Control D filling down, even if you put those character codes in the comment that you put in that box and fill down, all it's going to fill down is the code.
Yes, because
it fills exactly what's in the box.
Right, because if I did Control V, if I did the character code here, that character code's not working because it's tools and Markbook working together that gets the name fixed up. So right now you're basically just like photocopying onto a piece of paper. So it's not picking up there. Excellent question though, because this was something we discovered the hard way. People were putting in this language in progress reports and it wasn't working well for them. So cancel that. We've got a few minutes left. I think let's talk about math.
I think that there's one question from the chat that we haven't addressed here.
Yep.
Is for students who are new but over 6 weeks to a class, when a teacher tries to post and a warning comes up to overwrite, could she be overwriting marks or comments put in by the previous teacher? She cannot see the whole report card as the curriculum partner, so she doesn't know if there's marks or comments in that area before she started.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to reiterate. I'll keep choosing home run here. First, so I'm going to stop. So what we're talking about are kids. These are kids in this grade 6-7 class. I'm in the homeroom right now, and they are enrolled. So teacher doing collecting attendance on them daily. They're here. You may actually have students in that have been with you and have left to go to another place to learn. You will see them connected to the withdrawn part. So in this case, there's one student name that has withdrawn. So knowing the 6-week rule, so they're in our, in our elementary program notes, we've clearly outlined, what the 6-week rule dates are. So February 3rd is the date. And so in conversation with your principal, just make sure you're figuring out who's responsible for the report. So maybe I had this kid until today, and then they're moving and they're going to Stef's class on Monday. Then I will be responsible for the report card. But next week they might show up on my withdrawn list, right? But I'm still responsible for the report card because of the 6-week rule. But if that student moved in the last week in November and went to Stef's class, I would still see them here, but Stef's the one that's rating the report card because of that 6-week rule. She has them. So let's say that the student has moved and I'm not doing the report cards. The new teacher's doing it. My responsibility here is to put nothing in this report. I can see it. If I put something in there like an E, then take it out. So we're going to keep that blank. These are the error pieces. I might have assessment things that I could, email to Stef and say, hey, here's something you can put there, but don't do anything. If you see that error about the report, then you can go in and look and say, okay, I know what's going on now. So say no the first time if you want to repeat. Then after that, click yes, it's okay. So, and I double check that with Rita, who's my go-to at IT department. Like, what is this error? And she's like, yeah, just the teacher that doesn't write the report, keep it blank. And the new teacher or the teacher that's responsible for writing it will do the work on that. And you can click yes on that if you're trying to avoid it. That's a little sketchy, but yeah, you can send me an email if you're wondering. And I'm working with principals on that too. They're building their understanding of that. Okay, so let's talk math. I want to go to the class. There we go. So math, we talked about last week, the math mark book area looks very different because it has just one mark rather than the strand math. And so what were some of the questions you've been hearing about math comments, Tien and Stef? What are you hearing from the crowd, or what's the chat saying?
Nothing in the chat currently. I've had a few questions around like, what do I write in here now, right? Like we kind of had a standardized format where we made we write a comment about that particular strand, number, sense, enumeration. We gave an example, we gave a next step, and then we kind of moved into our next strand, right? So like typically reporting on 2 or 3 strands kind of separately. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the questions have been around like, what do I write in a new comment now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we think about this student here, what do we think about them? If in that comment spot, like there's this big empty spot here, and you can free write in here. So some people are looking at it almost like this is my opportunity to write like I would a learning skill. So kind of think about that student holistically. If I want to say something about, the strands that we've engaged in this year that I have good evidence for. And so like number sense, patterning, and data management, maybe the landscape that I'm working in. As a teacher, you can free write in this area and talk about the student as a whole. And whereas I think before I may have felt like tonight I'm going to put in my number set mark and I'm going to flag and put in my number set comment. So I'd be kind of thinking about kids as, their experiences by individual strands. And then the next night I would come back in and put their patterning mark and then their comment. And sometimes I even had to do some rewriting because the language seemed to be the same, or they had the same next step, and just wasn't flowing well. And then the third day come back in and throw in the data management mark, and kind of felt like it wasn't really that holistic view of writing math. So I'm wondering now and I'm hearing from people that they're looking at kids. I'm going to write about 5 kids tonight. So I'm going to sit down, and tonight I'm going to write about Emily. And I've got like my little sheet, and I've got like, I think she's a B in number sense, B in patterning, and C in data management. And so I might have some comments that I'll apply from the comment bank, pull those over. But then I look at that comment holistically and find, this is what I want to say. And maybe I'm not even, if I want to think about where we're going next in math, maybe the next step doesn't have to be for every strand either. Because I know, Tien, you and I always talk about mathematical processes, like how might you use the mathematical processes when we write this?
And I think that that's something that I think is really actually quite powerful here, is that as teachers, we have a lot more discretion to kind of pull in those things that show kind of like, how do they think about math? And so for example, I might comment on how they are effectively communicating their thinking using a variety of tools, right? I might talk about how they're able to clearly communicate their reasoning and thinking. And that thinking often kind of extends across different strands, right? So like if I'm thinking about students in particular, I might think about how some students are really great at reasoning and proving orally. I might provide a next step that what are some tools, or what are some different ways that they could do it using concrete manipulators, for example.
Right. And I know, Stef, you working with the ELL population a lot too, like thinking about, their next step. If we hadn't written them before, their next step would be like, learn the language of patterning, or like, communicate using words in data management, and, tell us their strategies in number sense. Now we have the license to say we're going to support students to be communicators in math, and having one statement about that.
So there's oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Stef.
Sorry, I think I was ahead of Tien on that. Sorry.
Go ahead.
There's a question in the chat about, do we average all the strands to get the mark?
So I go back to that growing, I'm going to flip over to my PowerPoint, if I can still have it open, because growing success is our guide, right? It's where we do professional judgment, and it is where we, like, it's a rule book for us. And so nowhere on here does it talk about average, but what it does say is like, we're looking at this, the overall learning of the students. So, if you take that lens, we've done a lot of work on number sense and numeration, and they've had a lot of growth in that. And they may have, patterning at the start of the year, they didn't have some skills, and we went back and revisited that. I'm sure they do way better. Like, you have the professional judgment to say that that's a difference between a B and a B plus, like to say that they've made growth in that overall. Like, if I only had their patterning mark of a C back then, but I know them more as a learner now, that I can go back and assess them holistically. So there's no quantity on this. It's all about quality of the students' work, right? So it's about the strength of them, what they've grown to learn, and what's my path for that student as an instructional leader in my classroom. Where are we going to go next? So there's nothing there that tells me I have to report on 3 strands or 4 strands, or I have to average. We're really using our judgment about what has happened with in connection to the learning in our classroom. So it seems a little unsettling right now because we're talking about math, we should average it out and all that experiences, but like we can actually pull back and say, what do I think about this as a learner? And
right. And it goes back to that triangulation of data, right? Is making sure that you have sufficient information from that you're making that decision based on information that has been triangulated from those 3 different things, and making sure that we have evidence from all of those domains.
And I would argue, though, if I spent like 60% of the time on number sense enumeration and 20% on patterning and 20% data management, if that kid's not doing very well in number sense, then that's going to impact their mark, right? Because that's the experience and that we know by that. And that I could stand behind that and say, we've done a lot of work here and there are still gaps in this learning. And we, on the continuum, I can use that strategy and say, like, as a grade 5 student, we expected them to be making progress and understand these strategies, and they're kind of stuck in those beginner strategies. Like, we have evidence of that and we can speak to that. So it's okay for us to say that. We've been asking for years to say that really, like, the sense of number and number sense and computations are really the foundations of math, and we get to like showcase that by spending time on that in our classroom and evaluating their assessment.
I do like that they're not, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tien.
Just strong answer, Pam. Just from the chat here is, I like the idea of math learner, not just one strand to another. So that really sort of integrated view of students.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. They're not just in a box of number sense and a box of data management. It's them as a mathematician across all of the strands, right? How they think, how they. I
had a little drawing in our old curriculum as a criticism I had. It was like math, I thought, was like a really strong rope, like so powerful, that was made up of those 5 strands. And what we did for years is we were pulling the strands apart from each other, and we lost the rope, we lost the power. So now I think we're into this, like, let's re-knit this together. Let's put it all together. They're stronger supporting each other. So yeah, so it's really nice to see that we're going to be able to value the things that we've been working on with students in our classroom, because they're telling us where they need to go next, right? So, and I know principals have received the message. They are not to count like how many strands are being reported on. There, we talk about that 3-part comment: what's been learned, what's the success, and what's next in learning. It doesn't say that you have to have those 3 things for every strand you talk about. It could be like learning and strength, learning and strength, learning and strength, and this is our next step moving forward. Like, we can write it in that way so that parents and kids see themselves in the learning. We went over time. Rod was telling us we are always on time, and we're over time. So I think
there is one more question.
Okay, one more. Last one.
Last one. Can you just review the window or tab you need to be in to apply a comment that has codes embedded? In some views, you can't see the final generated comment with the proper names and pronouns applied. Is that correct?
I'm gonna have to read that again. Just sorry, I'm gonna have to.
That's okay. You're navigating and listening all at the same time.
I'm like, what's happening here? Okay, so tell me again.
Which window or tab do you need to be in to apply a comment that has codes embedded? In some views, you can't see the final generated comment with the proper names and pronouns attached. Is that correct?
Okay, so the only place you should use coded language is in the tool spot. The only place. Okay, so if it's there, that's my bad comment here. I need to get that. That's why I had that error, because my code was bad. Delete. So this is the only place you put the coded language. When you are in Markbook, don't kick me out. When you're in Markbook, you are using the tool functions. There's some magic. I don't know, there's probably some kind of computer
database manage or database magic. That's what it is, Pam.
Database magic.
The magical database.
Yeah. So take that out. Oh, these are all. I picked one that has all the test environment in it. So if I'm going to put that comment in, I know I just saw it had the coded language in it. I'm going to pick it. Oh, why didn't that go? Picking the wrong one, I think. I'm just going to put a dance mark in there. There you go. There you go. So the dance there. So the code doesn't show up in that. It only shows up with the pronouns and everything that's happening there. Oh, it's too long because all those W's. There you go. So it was a sloppy answer. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Does that answer your question, Tracy?
Okay, well, sounds
Good,
like
thank you.
good. Yeah, I'm available for email if you have questions and that sort of thing. Leverage our instructional coaches. They have been great partners on this. They've been joining in the sessions and been my editors and my eyes on things. So they're informed.
And all of your PDF and all of the videos and everything are available from the blog. You can access it at any time. Little chunks of information, just exactly what you need to see that Pam has made.
And they're great at getting things back to me. Like, people are wondering about this, or people are on fire about that. And I appreciate that. So talk to them, tell them. Hi, Rod.
I think you got through a ton of questions there, something like 33 or 34. That's tremendous.
Good.
It was busy. It was busy.
And that was our audience was up near 80 people at one point. So that's really
awesome.
terrific.
Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm, Pam, that class is that fictional class. So we're okay to share that?
I tried to say there, I think I might have flashed and touched a grade 7 class every once in a while. So just the thing to look for is we want to protect student privacy. I know. So if it says see this grade 7 one, no, I'm not sure about that one.
All right, grade 7 we'll block out.